And the topic is health.
My sister's got hay fever. Now she's got diabetes, so I tried to cheer her up, you know, flowers, chocolates. About a month before he died, my grandfather recovered his back with lard. After that, he went downhill very quickly. Recently had bird flu, but it's all relative, isn't it? You know, if I had rabies and you offered me bird flu, I'd bite your hand off. Last summer, I set up a clinic for colonic irrigation, but the hosepipe ban hit us hard.
Milton, let's see what subject. Let's spin the wheel. The subject is family.
One of my earliest memories is seeing my mother's face through the oven window. As we played hide and seek, and she said, "You're getting warmer." My auntie Jean got a sister called Jean. Her daughter Jean just had a baby, called it Jean. They all went to a nightclub to celebrate. They got to the door and the bouncer said, "Sorry." You're all wearing trainers. My grandfather, Jean, always complaining about how much things cost.
£1.50 for a cup of tea, £2.25 for 3 custard creams.
I said, "Look, Grandad, you just popped round. I didn't invite you." My other grandfather, he was always going on about how in the old days people could leave their back doors open, which is probably why his submarine sank. My other grandfather, when he died, we didn't even get the chance to say goodbye, which was all the more poignant because he drowned in a bowl of Cheerios.
And the subject is travel.
When I was young, my mum used to put food on a spoon and say, "There's a train coming, there's a train coming, there's a train coming." We'd always eat it because we knew that if we didn't, she wouldn't untie us from the railway line. I tried to get here by train today. They said, "Today there's a bus replacement service." So I gave them a tin of pineapple chunks. I said, "What's that?" I said, "That's my money replacement service." I didn't have any money because her friend nicked my £5. Thanks, that doesn't normally work. Anyway, I managed to borrow a car and I parked it up in Bus Lane. Last year I went on a ballooning holiday, put on 4 stone. The other day I bought one of those off-road vehicles, 3,000 quid, got it home, found out it was a canoe.
Entertainment.
I was watching Blue Peter the other day, who's a neighbour with really bad circulation. I said to him, "Peter, why don't you get a pacemaker?" He said, "I can't even run, let alone keep up with someone." I was watching TV the other day, and I flipped over, and all I could see were the brown cushions on my sofa really close up. You have to be careful watching television. You think to yourself, that bloke's better looking than me, he's got a better car than me, and he's got a cat called Jess. My favourite film is the French film And. I think it was released over here as E.T. You have to admire people who go into the performing arts. They have to do exercises every single day for their future careers. Big issue.
The subject is food. Who wants to talk about that? Milton.
I went for an Italian recently. Well, he was annoying me. Incredible to think, isn't it, that every single Scotsman started off as a Scotch egg. Cold and gingery. I was grilling some tomatoes the other day, saying, "Who are you? Where'd you come from?" I almost got into the SAS. I failed on one question. They said, right, imagine the scenario. Terrorists have taken hostages. They're holding them in an embassy. What are your preferred tactics? I said, I like the orange ones. I was in the park the other day watching an old man feed the birds, and after a while I thought to myself, I wonder how long he's been dead. When the boys in the playground found out that I had a potentially fatal allergy to peanuts, they used to shove me up against a wall and make me play Russian roulette with a bag of Revels.
And the topic is careers.
At college, I studied agriculture and communications, specialising in sheep. In the end, I came out with a BAA. After that, I set up the British Sheep Census, but I fell asleep halfway through that. At the end of the day, my dad always goes around pulling out all the plugs and turning out all the lights, very safety conscious. Why he got the sack from air traffic control. My nephew, when he grows up, he wants to be an accountant. So for his birthday, I bought him a great big bag of receipts. I said, listen, don't worry if you don't like them. I've kept all the presents. You know, when you're a pirate and you work mainly canals, annoying, isn't it, when you try and get one of your enemies to walk the plank? They just run off down the towpath. Mind you, the state of the towpath near us, I wouldn't touch it with...
The subject is relatives.
The scariest thing that ever happened to me in my entire life was when I was very little. My dad said, I'm just going to pop upstairs. And he went upstairs and he popped. I didn't speak to my dad. Well, he was a bus driver. You're not allowed to. My brother, he's allergic to cheese, not the taste. Just if anyone says the word, he goes, boop. Doesn't happen very often, but we've got some weird family photos. My grandfather, he was a GI, and he was in the RAF. OK, he was a giraffe. During the war, when board games were illegal, he was put in prison for being a Yahtzee sympathiser. My uncle, he was a security guard at the O2 Arena.
And the topic is nationality.
If you're addicted to meths, you're either an alcoholic or a South African with a real love of numbers. I've got a friend who got caught shoplifting in Saudi Arabia. Fortunately, he'd stolen a prosthetic hand. Unfortunately, it was a second offence. So I'm in France, and I saw this little old lady knitting in the town square. I said, "Voulez-vous crochet avec moi?" I used to teach English in Germany. First day I taught them everything beginning with A. Second day, everything beginning with B. D-Day was a bit tricky. So I'm in a disco in Tehran. All these women dancing around a handbag singing Iranian Men, Hallelujah. Recently, I phoned up the spiritual leader of Tibet. He sent me a large goat with a long neck. Turns out I'd phoned Dalai Lama.
The topic is employment.
I used to dream of having a job. Sometimes I'd go down to the bottle bank and stick my arms in through the holes and pretend to be working at a nuclear processing facility. I lost my job as a prison officer for organising a lock-in. I only had one job as an architect, but apparently a revolving mosque makes it difficult to pray towards Mecca. My first day working on a building site, I felt sure someone would ask me to go and get something that didn't actually exist, you know, like striped paint or something. Sure enough, someone asked me to go and get an air ambulance. Well, I played them at their own game. Took my time and said, "Oh no, I just couldn't seem to find one." You should have seen his face. It was blue. Years ago, of course, I used to supply filofaxes for the mafia. Yeah, I was involved in very organised crime.
The subject is family.
All my family are black and white. I phoned my dad the other day. He said, "You left the room before I finished speaking. I wanted you to go to Holland and Barrett and get me some tablets. Where are you now?" I said, "Holland." I always left the room before my dad finished speaking. I remember once he said, "Why don't you go outside and jump up and down on the trampoline?" Except I didn't hear the Aline. My grandfather, he eventually achieved his lifelong ambition to be a lion whisperer. Just before he died. Hashtag fail. My mother, she's got to the stage now where all she does is go on about who's just died.
Do you remember Muriel? She's just died. Do you remember Arthur? He's just died.
I said, "Mum, get off the roof and give me the gun."
And the topic is entertainment.
I'm reading a book at the moment. It's called The Anticlimax. The first part is good. I see Rihanna had to cancel a concert because she got salmonella. Ella. I also see Down by the Thames, they're making another wheel, this time dedicated to Mary Poppins, called the London Diddle-Diddle-Diddle-Diddle-Eye. My grandmother, she got her scarf caught in one of those Ferris wheels, but she did regain consciousness. After all, what goes around... I was in a nativity play once. I was the man who scares the children because he comes into the hall on the wrong day to play badminton. Lionel Richie says hello, by the way. The other day I saw a sheep pole dancing in a kebab shop.
And the subject is work.
I didn't think I'd get a loan from the bank for my knitting business, but when I turned up actually wearing one of the balaclavas... I used to be a weatherman. In fact, does anyone want to buy a broken barometer? No pressure. If there'd been a mix-up, my uncle could have ended up as the next president of the United States. He's an undertaker in the army, or Barack Obama. Soldiers, of course, very emotionally repressed. Sometimes you see one of them go into the middle of a parade ground and shout, "Attention!" What he needs is a hug. Well, that's what I thought. My dad, he was a soldier, so, of course, as a family, we were always moving around a lot, because he used to use us for target practice. 6 hours I had to wait in the other day for the electrician until he opened the cupboard under the stairs and I was able to leap out at him. I remember when I was a policeman, I was asked to seal off an area and I went...
And the topic is medicine.
I have to go to the chemist soon to collect my prescription. Not from PC World like last time. Those tablets were very difficult to swallow. Recently I went to the chiropractors, or as they call them in the capital of Egypt, the practors. Well, I put my back out trying to shoot horses, but it turns out the World Health Organization aren't trying to eradicate polo. My dad was a doctor, my mum was a nurse. They had 6 children. We all left home early. Well, they needed the beds. I remember the birthday I asked for that game, Operation. 3 years I waited. I was talking to a nurse the other day. She said the main problem facing the NHS is Holby City. Actually, she might have said obesity.
The topic is transport.
So I was on the bus the other day. Driver stopped, got off, wouldn't come back. Apparently some bloke with big teeth kept talking to him. Before that, though, I overheard a mermaid on the bus. She said,
I like sitting on the beach, but my other half likes swimming.
Anyway, reading between the lines is dangerous if you're waiting for a train. Anyway, I did a show in Liverpool recently, and afterwards a bloke came up to me and said,
Hey, listen, I want to talk.
I said, well, just keep practising. Next month, I'm in Northern Ireland, County Down, 4, 3, 2... I don't need a relationship. I am a rock. I'm an island. Sometimes I go down to airport arrivals and I stand with a piece of cardboard saying, no one. Well, I did that until I had to give a lift to a Mr. Noon.
And the subject is music.
We don't know much about Galileo. He was a poor boy from a poor family. I live in a grade 2 listed building, which of course means that everyone in it has to be quite good at the piano. Apparently all Chinese children who are learning to play the piano know a tune called Knife and Fork. I'd like to take the band ABBA out for lunch, and if I could, I would, my friend. For Nando's. When I was at school and it rained, we used to have to stay in for wet play. And when it was cold, we used to have to stay in and listen to this really dull band. AD 79. Julius Caesar receives the first ever weather forecast. Hail Caesar.
And it's jobs. Milton.
Have you noticed that if you Google the phrase lost medieval servant boy, it says this page cannot be found? Some of you are going to be doing that tomorrow. I think if I was opening a Pizza Express, I'd open it next to a Vision Express, so we got some of their customers by mistake. I think if I'd unlimited money, I'd hire 2 private investigators and get them to follow each other. Do you ever get that thing where you think someone's probably definitely wearing a wig, and you think to yourself, I'm sorry, Your Honour. I'm a bit of a lazy writer, according to my children, QWERTY and F12. Being a PE teacher, that's easy, isn't it? Shiny. I teach running. Run. I teach swimming. Swim. And a tiny, tiny little bit of geography. Jog.
The topic is shopping.
Tricky, isn't it, when you go to buy a toaster, and at the end the shop assistant says, well, what about insurance? And you don't want to, but you end up taking a hostage. Recently, I bought the autobiography of Francesco Cello, the man who invented sellotape. But I couldn't find the beginning. So, lads, if you want to confuse a girl, best thing to do is buy her a pair of chocolate shoes. So I took my cases and my clothes to Tesco, because they say they help you pack your bags. Instead, everyone was just running around going, do you want some fruit and veg? Do you want some fruit and veg? Do you want some fruit? Turns out it was one of those hypermarkets. What else can I tell you about myself? I own a small zoo and a pirate ship, although not at the same time. I didn't buy that much Lego. I mean, we think of pirates as being all smiley. It turns out they're actually all Somali.
And the topic is transport.
When I was at school, my bike was smashed up. It was my own fault, really. I just handed out leaflets saying, bullying, let's break the cycle. We've been over this again and again and again, said my driving instructor, pointing to the Badger. Apparently, there is actually a road in the north of England called Quality Street. And there's only one person living in it, and he's both Turkish and delightful. Tricky, isn't it, if you're both a moth and a sea captain? In charge of a ship. But up ahead, you see a lighthouse. You know you shouldn't. Toilets in trains are rubbish, aren't they? Especially the one right at the front, and the bloke in there gets so cross.
The topic is safety. Away you go.
Just like to say to the old man who was wearing camouflage and using crutches, who stole my wallet earlier, you can hide, but you can't run. Of course, these days, a lot of people are putting poison on the menu of restaurants in the hope that French people think it's fish. My dad's answer to everything was alcohol. He didn't drink, he was just very bad at quizzes. I only have access to my son on Saturdays. Well, he fell under the floorboards of a synagogue. And I would like to see a world without plagiarism. You may say I'm a dreamer. But I'm not the only one. You see, my friends, if I had a crystal ball, I'd sit down very carefully. They say that putting mud on your face is good for your skin, but I saw a sign the other day that said sewage treatment works. Trust me, it doesn't.
And the topic is school.
So I went up to a fruit stall the other day, and behind it was my old maths teacher. He didn't recognise me, so can I help? I said, yeah. If apples are 75 pence a pound... Do you know, he just looked at me and went... I thought, oh, no, it was PE, wasn't it? Music teachers, they were rubbish. And they could only count to 4, and then they'd try and distract you with some music. Our woodwork teacher would always say,
My door is always open.
we'd say, still not fixed it. I went back to my old school the other day. It was weird being back there. The smell of varnish, the echo of the science room. Memory of the fire engines. Anyway, I was shown into the Phoenix Hall, which wasn't there in my day. My old maths teacher said to me, Jones, how did you do it? I said, I used that old formula, me times I can. He said, is that why you're dressed as a Mexican?
The topic is transport.
So I got here by train. For the whole journey, there was a child opposite screaming. I could even hear him through my wolf mask. But it was a quiet carriage and people were getting annoyed, so in the end, we both stopped howling. Then a stewardess got on the train. She looked at me and said, do you mind if I do my makeup on the train? I said, well, it's still going to look like a train, isn't it? She put her hand out and said, I'm Amber. I said, yes, I think you've overdone the makeup. Anyway, one thing led to another, and, well, I'm going to skip a bit now. I was sitting in traffic the other day and I got run over.
And the topic is history.
Some things in history are good, some things are bad, some things are good, and then they get bad, like my great-great-great-uncle was bored in the trenches during the war, so he invented the high-vis jacket. That was the last thing he did. People don't really understand evolution, do they? I was talking to an Australian the other day, and he thought that he came from Darwin. Recently, I wrote a book called All the Things I've Ever Done in My Entire Life, and I don't want to spoil it, but in the end, I write a book. So what's got two eyes and smokes? Pompeii. Too soon? My grandfather, he can't do what he used to, you know, bomb the Japanese. And it turns out you can't actually keep an artifact that you find with a metal detector if it's already in the British Museum.
And the topic is travel. There you go.
So I'm in Brazil, and I bought some fruit off some of the indigenous people, and they turned round and said, people who bought fruit on Amazon also bought these sausages. I don't know if you've ever fallen asleep while eating a plate of broccoli and woken up and thought you were in a forest. What's worse than that, though, is falling asleep in a forest, waking up and trying to finish the broccoli. The Paris Metro. That's the weirdest Tesco I've been in. Easter Island, that's a difficult place to find, but it's in a different place every year. The weirdest thing I ever saw, though, I was in Reading and I saw this hen party. Thanks, that doesn't normally work.
And the topic is Parenthood. Away you go, Milton.
I went back to my parents' house the other day, looked into my neighbour's garden where I used to steal apples as a toddler. They didn't mind me stealing apples, it was dressing up as a toddler they thought was weird. I come from a family of auctioneers. There's my mum, my dad, my Uncle Philip, Auntie Eileen, my dying grandfather, going. I said to my dad, I keep making mistakes. He said, you're talking to the wrong person. I said, oh, no, not again. He said, well, it wasn't as bad as that Uber driver I had the other day. He fell asleep. So Calvin Klein's mum has labelled everyone else's pants. When my daughter was born, she had jaundice, so there she was, small, round, and yellow. We called her Melanie. Apparently, I didn't even turn up to one of my own children's christenings, according to one of them, who shall remain nameless.
And the topic is shopping.
Those reward cards are rubbish, aren't they? I've got too many points on one of them, and now I'm not allowed to drive. It's really important if you buy something, of course, to read all the instructions. I don't know if you've ever tried to fill a baboon with helium. It is not the best lip salve I've ever used. I couldn't complain. Southern Comfort tastes nice. Ordinary Comfort tastes like fabric softener. But at least your burps smell of summer meadows. When I was in America, I really got into the culture, so I went into a shop and the guy said, "Have a nice day," and I didn't, so I sued him.